Hello everybody. You can see a huge mess on my build station. I now have a resin printer. You can hear it running in the background. The cure station's running. That's a humming sound. Okay, it's curing up some more parts. I'm also printing off some more parts. I'm building a model that I found on Cults 3D. It's also on Thingverse. I've been experimenting with different types of supports for the resin printer. Right here you can see this. I'll come in and talk about my thoughts about the resin printer versus a filament printer. Yeah, that's beeping there. But I'm trying to learn about supports, and I am slowly getting it. Okay? For example, this one's printed without supports. This one's printed with supports. And you look at it carefully, and I'll compare them in a second if I can keep from dropping things. This didn't print right along here, but without supports it printed correctly. So if I put them side by side, you can see that this is warped along here. So there's something going on with supports I'm not getting correctly. This guy printed great without supports. Okay? This one printed with supports, but now I got a spare to play with. I can work on getting the windows set up the way I want because I did not print the windows in this. Okay? Probably could have, but I wanted to try to do something else with the windows, and I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to do with that. And I have some time. It's not like due tomorrow. There's no rush on this thing. My life has been hell for a couple of years. That's why videos haven't been coming up. I don't see my life changing from that anytime soon. Okay? I expect it to stay kind of hell for a while. These are duplicated parts, kind of, but one has recesses cut for lighting in it because the ship has lighting come out the bottom here, and one does not, but they're both hollow. The filament version of this would be solid. All right, and this is the nose of the ship. These two parts go together like this. Okay, they go together like this on the front of the ship, which would go here. Okay, so I finally get to see what the front of this thing is going to look like. And from the looks of it, I got a lot of cleaning up to do on this. But anyhow, and some cleaning up to do on these. You won't really see a lot of the cleanup until you get the primer on it. Okay, I'm going to print a bridge that's going to sit here. So we'll have a bridge in the model. And I will be able to light the bridge, because the bridge is printing in clear, this clear here. Now, I know it's kind of yellowish. Here, let me get one more piece. Hopefully it's still over here. My test piece that I printed a while back. I can't find it. It's here somewhere. I printed the test cube that came with the printer. It's clear again. What I'm noticing with the clear resin I'm using is that over time, it turns clear again. When you first cure it, it's going to turn yellow. The UV light turns it yellow. But when it sits and you wait a while, it turns back to clear. Still foggy. The foggy is from the process of washing it and cleaning it and curing it. I haven't really tried to undo the foggy yet, but I've read a few things, and I will try that soon. Okay? Now, let me talk about what I'm doing here. I've been building a few Gundam models here and there. We got the United States Gundam here. You can see him. I've been playing with the resin printer. I wanted to print these because Miri likes painting things, and I want to try to get her into painting minis. I've also been painting these, printing these, trying to learn supports. That's a Minbari ship. It's in scale with the Babylon 5 model from Revel. Okay, here's a better printout, but I still can't get this thing to print 100% correctly. And this bottom fin down here is just always misprinting on everything I do. So there's something set wrong or something wrong with the model. I don't know. Here's one where the bottom fin printed great, but no model. Yeah, this is the fun I'm having with this. But it's learning. It's a learning process. Okay. And here's another one where it printed fine here, so I could cut this one off and stick it on there, whereas the rest of this didn't print okay. It's learning supports. That's what this is. Just learning supports. Same thing with Gamera here. His shell printed beautifully on this, but he's got no arms or legs. Here's the filament version. And you notice the shell does look much better on the resin version. But the resin version has no hands. No hands. No feet. And that's because I don't have support set up. This foot is kind of there. Okay? In fact, that foot may actually be okay. So he's got one foot, but he's missing the rest of his body. Here's the first time I printed Gamera. Yeah, that was great. Coming back, and it's air printing. So supports are the big thing to learn on there. Here's one Gamera that came free of the supports, and you can see his legs are really just messed up. His tail's messed up. Again, I'm trying to learn supports, and you're not going to learn without making mistakes. So what is this in front of me? Some of you may have figured it out. It is the rocket ship Ajax from the Flash Gordan movie where Queen did the soundtrack, the one from the 80s. I have most of the parts printed right now. There's some in the resin printer waiting for me to put them in the cleanup. I have some more things printing downstairs. With the filament printer, one of the things printing is more of these. I don't have all of these printed. There's some decoration on the outside I need to print as well. And there's a railing that goes along here to print, well, goes along down this bottom part here. Now, the designer of this model did what they could with it. I'm grateful for the designer. So don't take this as criticism. It's just, there are some shortcomings. If you're going to light this model, there are a few shortcomings here and there. Okay? They did design it so you could put fiber in the laser guns up here. Okay? But there's lights that go in here, and the panels that cover these parts are completely missing. So if you want to light this like you see in the movie, you're going to have to fabricate those panels. Not a big deal. I know how to do that. Anyone who's printing a model will probably know how to do all that. There is some flashing strobe lights along this wing edge on both sides. There's no channel to run your fiber optics there. And it pulses. So one flash, pause. One flash, pause. I'm trying to decide if I want to attempt that. I think I know how to attempt that with a really simple circuit. But if I don't, I don't. I can just at least put one blinky on the end here. I'm not trying to make this thing perfect, screen accurate by any way, shape, or means. The model itself is not. And part of that, and again, I'm not going after the designer. I am, again, thankful. This model was free. You don't criticize free. Okay? Part of the problem for the designer was you had different photos, different video capture, one with actors on the set, one of the models, the filming model they used, the scales were not the same on both. That is a huge problem for the designer of the model. Like the bridge is 2 stories tall. So this thing right here is supposed to be 2 stories tall. And when I print the bridge out, you'll be able to see it in there 2 stories tall. Well, when we get to this part right here, this is supposed to be 1 story tall. And there's supposed to be another part up here, which I have here, that sits, it's backwards, sits on here like this. I'm holding it against my belly. This is going to sit on here like this, okay? And people come in and out the top up here, and people coming out the top right there. Now, if this is 2 stories tall, I'm going to set that down so I don't drop it. If this part's 2 stories tall, why are the doors there 1 story tall? They should be smaller. But if you look at the filming model, they're big like this. This isn't necessarily the designer's fault. This is more like they had to make choices. They make it screen accurate by the filming model, they make it screen accurate by the screen model. And they went a little bit with both. The only model I can find of this is the one I'm printing, so again, I'm thankful. I'm just saying I'm not even going to attempt to make this screen accurate because it can't be. I would have to go in and completely redesign the model, and I don't know how to do that. The flat underside of these wings are supposed to be flat according to screen accuracy. I like the pattern that's on there, so I'm liable to leave that pattern on there and put a little bit of highlights to make it look panel lined a bit, because I like it. The model itself was slightly panel lined and slightly Aztec, so I might leave it that way. The top of the wing, here. Now, if you look in the movie, the top of the wing had rivets and panels on it. This does not. It does have some panel lines, but this printed as a pretty thin layer. In fact, I think it's only one layer thin. Might be two. That's probably 2 layers thin, which leaves it with little to no good detail. And my printer's not buttoned in 100% correctly. So you look at both sides of this, they're not symmetric. Not at all. So I'm going to have to do some work to button this up and clean it up. And I'm trying to decide what I want to do. There were also rivets all over the outside of the ship. And there's no rivet detail on here. And again, I don't blame the designer for this stuff. It's not his fault. I mean, you can only spend so much time designing one of these things. And I'm not a rivet counter. I'm, again, grateful it's here. Now, I printed a couple of versions of these because I realized my white filament was kind of sucky and the red filament is not. And I have issues with the white filament. Again, I was printing some bad lines right along here. The red filament is not. You look at this red one along the same edges, it's perfect. The red one's printing really nicely, so these are probably model artifacts. But again, you will be able to clean that up. So Mr. Surfacer 1000 on this, or 500, sanding, and I bet I can get a lot of that out. Okay? And here's part of the vertical fin that goes up here at the top. And here's the little rail that goes on the top of that fin. And notice there is no channel on here for this. So I'm going to have to make a channel on this for this to mount on correctly. The print artifacts on here, I'm going to leave. I like them. So I'm not going to clean up the top of this. I'm going to leave it that way. Okay. The side artifacts, well, there aren't any. This is to have 2 LEDs in it, 2 red LEDs, one on the front and the one on the back. The holes are there for the LEDs, but the channels are not there for the wires. So I'm going to have to drill my way through this, into this. These are 2 parts. There is a place where I can channel this a little bit, but it's not very thick. So running wires through here is going to get really interesting. Okay? And I don't want to thicken that up because it won't look right. And that's getting me to the points I have to make decisions on. I'm about to do my lighting approach, which will be a separate video because this video is getting too long. These are doors that open, and the bad guys come in and out the doors. The doors are in the center of these spots right there. So that makes a guy about that big, but on the bridge, they have to be about half that size. Again, not the fault of the designer or the model, the fault of the movie. That movie was just a mess everywhere. Okay? So in the movie, there were lights up along this ridge here, rectangular lights along this ridge. Well, that plastic is too thick in here for me to put those rectangular ridges in, lights in. So I might just change them to circular holes and run a LED strip down the center of this. Okay? Now I have to make these decisions before I start finishing this body off. Other thing I have to have is parts, various parts, go in various slots on this model, like this. And the parts don't fit in the slots 100% correctly. So I'm going to have to make some adaptation to the parts. For example, this part is supposed to fit in with this part right here. And you notice there isn't any. So this is going to need some sanding to get to fit in here. Then this part is supposed to fit in here, which it does not. And I have a white one because I wanted to see it was the white filament. And they are exactly the same. If I get my calipers out and measure that, exactly the same. So it's not, it's the model that's off a little, but that's okay. Again, it's free. This is going to be a little bit more difficult to do than a resin model because you're going to have to assemble it, clean it, and all sorts of other stuff. And a lot of resin models, the surface comes pretty okay. Okay, and then this again bolts on there. This bolts on the back of this like this. And again, the parts are not fitting correctly. That part fits well. And I'm noticing some of the parts fit, some of the parts do not. That part fits well. This is supposed to mount up there like that. And you can notice there's an overhang here where it's not lining up correctly. And looking at the movie, there was a slight overhang here. But I'm trying to decide if I want to leave it a big overhang here, or if I want to scale this part right here down a little bit. The problem is if I scale it down a little bit, and that isn't going to fit in there correctly, and the sphere that goes on there won't fit in there correctly. So again, I'm going to have a lot of choices to make on this, on how I want to do things, and I may leave the ridges along there the way they are, okay, for a lot of reasons. But this is not going to be small. You can already tell this is not going to be small. It's going to look really good when it's done. I'm really happy I came across this thing. Again, this is one of those models I've just wanted for a long time, okay? But there's going to be a lot of adapting, a lot of work to do. So those of you wanting to get a resin printer and print your own models, I know that's the future where this stuff is going, but just be aware you're going to be doing a lot of grunt work on them for now. They'll probably get better over time. Again, here's another part it's supposed to bolt on down here. There's some parts that go along here. There's a whole lot of parts that go on the bottom. This is where the wings bolt on like this. The wings go on like this, okay? And again, they don't line up 100% correctly, so I'm going to have to do some work to get them to line up correct. There's plenty of room for lighting. I feel like I'm ranting right now. I have a lot of parts in a bin down there. I got the laser guns in a bin. A whole lot of these little tiny, there's some really tiny ladders that are printed. They're all in a little bin down there, so I don't lose track of them. I'm about to put a lot more of these parts in a bin. I have also printed some parts like this one in both resin and filament, so I can see what's stronger, what I'd rather do, because I'm new to this. I can't look at it off the top of my head and go, oh, that's going to be better this way. Okay? I'm walking over because it just came out of the cure. I already broke this one too, so if I want to use it in resin, I'm going to have to reprint it. I broke it right across there, which is kind of telling me the resin is thinner and not as strong as the, look how clean that is. It's not as strong as, but it's clean. And I bet I can get this to clean up really nicely and be clear. I just have to do some work on it. Maybe I look up how people who are casting resin get their resin really clear. And I bet I can do the same thing with this. But again, I'm not sure if I want to use which one to use. Okay? I might like the line pattern that's forming on this, but this part is supposed to go on. It's either this one goes here. You can see it's fitting on there. Either this one goes here or this one goes here. I have to go look at the directions. The directions came with this were pretty good. Yeah, I think this one fits here. And then the wings fit on like this. And I've already printed the door that bolts on the bottom for the wings. And there's a door that snaps in there, so you can have access to your electronics and stuff. And this other one goes in the front. So this model's got like 50 parts to it. I've got like 30 of them printed. And I know I'm rambling. And I have spares. Like, I don't need both of these. And I'm going to go print one of these in filament and see just how they come out with the filament printout. That was another surprise to me. I didn't put holes in this, so the resin didn't drain out as it was printing. And when I pulled off the build plate, resin went everywhere. And I had to re-wash them again. Same thing with this one. There were holes in here so the resin did drain out. But when I went through the wash, alcohol got in it. So both these had to go through the wash twice. But I'm happy I'm printing it this way because, again, the filament version of this is going to be solid in there, and I'm not going to have this room for lighting. I can put some LEDs in here, and light is supposed to come out the bottom of this. So I can figure out if I want to use the solid one, this one, and put my LEDs right in there, and mask these, and then paint my light blocking, pull the mask off. This will give me the lenses. They're not incredibly bright in the movie, so they don't need to be. Or I use the one with the holes and have the LED sticking through the holes, and they're going to be bright then. There's little marker lights all over the wings, little marker lights all over the body, and a couple in the fin that goes across the top. So I got my work cut out for me. Let me quit this video because it's exceedingly long, and I'll get it posted tonight.